Greetings, friend. I will show you how Simon Anthony of Cracking the Cryptic solved this classic Sudoku by Derek Neal by placing marks in the grid. Click on the link below if you want to try the puzzle yourself. I'll also include some positive video and what-if moments to help you analyze alternate solve paths. And with that, it's solving time. Okay, so Simon started off by putting some ones down here in block 7 because there's only 2 spots for a 1 in block 7. And then he started looking at the 2s and noticed that you have a 2 in row 7 and a row 8, so you can solve for a 2 right here because there's another 2 coming down column 3. And so he was happy that he was able to solve a digit so quickly. Then he looked at the 9s, saw there's a 9 right here and a 9 right here. And he was able to solve, and then went up and saw, okay, here's a 9 right there, and then these 2 9s, and he was able to solve for a 9 here in row 5, column 8. And then he started marking some 9s, so 9s in block 5, only 2 spots remaining there, and then 9s in block 8, only 2 spots remaining there. And so what this is called, if you're not familiar, is it's called Snyder notation. And so when you see there's only 2 spots remaining for a particular digit in a block, you'll mark that. And the idea being that in case you solve one of these cells, the other one, you can immediately solve it right away. It came up by Thomas Snyder. Awesome. It's very helpful for solving Sudoku puzzles, hard Sudoku puzzles like this quickly and moving forward. Okay, so after those 9s, he found another digit. He saw that there's an 8 coming in row 7 and 8, and then coming down columns 8 and 9, one place left for an 8 there. And then he finds a 7 in the same block. So you saw there's 2 7s here, 2 7s there, and so he marked for 7. And he's like, wow, I'm actually finding some digits. Because Mark had told Simon that this is a brutally hard puzzle and you have a hard time with it. I mean, that's why the name of the puzzle video is Diabolical, because there's a ton of advanced strategies, and we'll get to those here real short. All right, after that 7, he starts marking some 4s in the grid. He knows there's only 2 spots for 4 because of these 4s in columns 4 and 5 right there, and then mark some 7s in block 1 because you have 7 coming up column 1 and across row 1, 2 spots for 7 there. And then he marked some 3s in block 7. And this is nice because you have this 3 coming down here, column 3. So it's 2 spots for 3 here, and this creates a pointing pair. So now 3s can't be anywhere else in column 2. And so Simon's able to now limit the 3s in block 4 here to just these 2 spots. After marking those 3s, Simon notices there's only 2 spots for 5 in block 8, so he marks those. And then he marks 2s, only 2 spots for 2 because you have this 2 coming across row 5 and up column 9 here in block 6. And after those 2s, he says it's kind of grinding to a halt. And so he started revering this puzzle. He's going, oh, doesn't really give me that much. He doesn't really see the next place to go because you can see there's really not a big concentration of filled-in cells anywhere. He doesn't see that much more Snyder notation, or that it's really these markings are working well together. So then he starts marking by value cells in the grid. So he looks at row 9, column 4, and says that this can only be a 5 and a 6. Then he looks at row 9, column 6, and puts that as a 3 and a 4. And then he looks at row 9, column 3, notices that is a 4, 5, or 6. And he's not real happy they had to put in 3 candidates there. Then he's like, oh, there's way too many candidates to put, so I'm not going to mark this in row 9, column 9. Then he notices that there's 7s in block 5, and so yeah, the 7 coming up here and across there. So this is a 7, and this is a 7. And at that point, he stares at the 3s and where the 3s can be, and he notices a swordfish, believe it or not. So pause the video. This is the first pause the video moment. Pause the video and see if you can find a swordfish while I give you a few seconds. And it's a swordfish of 3s. Okay, congratulations if you spot it. You are excellent at finding swordfish. And this is not an easy puzzle to do it. You don't have all the candidates showing. We're not highlighting the threes like I like to do. And those of you who just want to enjoy the show, the swordfish is right here in columns 2, 5, and 8. Simon used kind of a pink to identify, and he kept this pink throughout the rest. So what he noticed is that there's only 2 spots for a 3 right here in column 2. And then those 2 spots can still be a 3 there in column 5, but there's no 3 in these spots, no 3 here, so there's only one other spot. So that's the 3rd spot. And then these 2 spots could be a 3 here in column 8, but this one can't because of this 3, and this one can't because of this 3. And so what you have here is a swordfish. In these 3 columns, the 3s can only be at most 3 spots, the same 3 rows. And I've done many puzzles like this, showing a swordfish. In fact, I'll put a link for one right now, which is Tattooing Sunset by Philip Newman. Ton of swordfish in there. If you really understand how swordfish work, I recommend you check that one out. And what you'll notice is, and Simon kind of says that he's like, first just look right here. 3 can either be here or it can be here in the swordfish. So if it's not there, if it's here, then what happens is now you end up with, these 4 spots to be a swordfish, right? And so these 4 spots end up being an X-wing because the 3 would be coming down this column. These wouldn't be anymore. Same thing, if that's not a 3, then this is the 3. Then the 3 can't be here, and it'd be these 4 spots. You need 2 other 3s. And so that's the swordfish is like, a 2x2 is like an X-wing, and then a 3x3 is a swordfish. So at most 3 spots. And if you try to put a 3 outside of these spots in these rows, like if you try to put a 3 right here, you end up breaking the puzzle, because then, like if you put a 3 right here, then you'd have no 3s in those spots, and you have a 3 you have to put in all 3 of these columns, but there's only 2 rows to put them in, and it would break the puzzle. So that's not good. So Simon notices it, and he keeps these highlighted throughout the rest of the solve. But the nice thing to know is that he noticed that you can't put a 3 here, you can't put a 3 here, and then he noticed you can't put a 3 here anymore. All right, so he marked those spots. We'll keep that in mind as we move on. So let's move on with the rest of the puzzle. Okay, after finding the swordfish, he starts to mark the spots where there can no longer be a 3 because of the swordfish. So first, he marks this 2, 9 there in row 1, column 6. Then he marks a 5, 6 in row 1, column 9. And he fills out the remaining candidates here in the 1, 4 in row 8, column 6. And then notices a 4, 5 in row 7, column 7. Again, because the 3s are cutting across, that can't be a 3 anymore. And that's how he tracks to make sure that he won't be putting a 3 in there and take the 3 out. And he starts looking down column 9. And in column 9, he sees that it's just a 3 and a 5 for row 4, column 9. And then just a 1, 4, 5 in row 6, column 9. Doesn't really see much else going on there in column 9. So then he goes to column 7, and it's a 1, 3, 4 for row 2, column 7, and then a 2, 3, 5 for row 4, column 7, and a 1, 3, 4 in row 5, column 7. And when you see Simon Anthony switch all the way out of Snyder and doing 3 and 4 candidates in a cell, he's struggling. Like he sounded like heavy labored breathing, like he was kind of frustrated. Like, where do I go with this? And he doesn't like to do all these extra marks. So he's really just trying to find something, this puzzle, to give him. Then he switches over to row 4, column 6, and notices a 2, 9. And then he says, oh, hey, I got a naked pair. Here's a 2, 9, and there's a 2, 9. That must be something, right? Because now you have this 2, 9, you have this 5, 6, and 8. Maybe it'll give me some more restrictions along column 6. So he gets a little happy. So then he marks 1, 3, 7. Originally, he marked a 4 in there, and he's like, oh, whoops, there's a 4, can't do it. So he put a 1, 3, 7. Then he looks at row 6, column 6, and realizes that can only be now a 1 and a 7 because it can't. The 2 and 9 can't be there. But then he's really at a loss because he did this and like, oh, that didn't solve anything. So then he starts looking around and see if there's anything else he can do. And so he notices that he can put 8s in block 5. So 2 spots for an 8 there. And then he notices he can put 2s in block 5. By marking these 2 2s. So there's only 2 spots for 2 there. And then he fills out the rest of block 5. So it's a 1 6 7 and a 1 6. And then he fills out 6s up here. He says, okay, there's a 6 here. These are now a pointing pair of 6. Because what he realizes is that this 2 8 9 2 8 9 is a naked triple here in block 5. And why is that? Because if you're doing Snyder, and you go, the 2's going to be in these 2 spots, 8's going to be in these 2 spots, and the 9's going to be in these 2 spots, those 3 candidates are limited to those 3 spots in this block, so that makes it a naked triple. And so then he was able to fill out and go, okay, 1 6 7 has to be the remaining. So these 6s are now limited. They're a pointing pair coming across row 5. And so now there's only 2 spots for 6 up here in block 4. So he gets a little bit of life back. He's like, that's cool. And then Simon finds a pretty cool empty rectangle. Okay, and so empty rectangle. I'll show you where it's at. The 2 spots we care about, and I'll highlight to kind of show it a little bit, is right there. And then what you want to do is you want to see where can a 2 be up in this cell. So I'll highlight that, and that'll probably make it a little bit easier for you to see. I've done a tutorial on empty rectangles. I'll put a link here. I hope you check it out if you're not really sure. But I call it as a slice and dice, right? Simon said, oh, since this 2's coming up, this 2's coming across, a 2 can either be in block 2, can either be here, right? And so if the 2's here, this can't be a 2. This would have to be a 2 because there's no other spots for a 2 along row 6. You always have to have this strong, weak, it's called a conjugate pair of 2's that it points to, right? And if that's a 2, this cell right here cannot be a 2. All right? And now if a 2's not in one of those 2 spots, a 2 has to be here, right? And if a 2's here, then a 2 still can't be in that spot. So either way, what Simon found out is that this can't be a 2. And so this shape is called an empty rectangle. It goes to here, cuts across with the conjugate pair, and then you can eliminate wherever it's pointing. Nice. And so what he does is he marks that this can only now be a 3, 5, and a 6. Okay, I removed the colors from the empty rectangle. I wanted to show it the way Simon had it. And we move on, and he was able to then, he was a little frustrated, like, oh, that didn't give me anything. But then he realized, oh, well, now the 2 come across row 2, and there's no 2's up here. I have a pointing pair of 2's. So he marked those 2's right there in block 3. And so, okay, I have 2's here, 2 come across here. So now I have a pointing pair of 2's in block 2. So he was able to eliminate a 2 from this spot, basically. After that, he fills out row 3, column 5, and says, oh, that's just a 1 8. He's seen a good job of these impact, these eliminations. At this point, he spent 21 minutes on this, and this is as far as he's gotten. I just realized, Simon and Mark are normally solving these puzzles in well less than 20 minutes. So he's already at 21 minutes, and he's definitely frustrated because he has no real good break-in, no way to really crack this puzzle just yet. So after that 1 and 8, he comes over here to column 1. He looks at row 2, column 1, and puts in a 3, 4, and 6. And you can see right away, the 3's right here. He doesn't notice it, but he puts a 3 there. This ends up slowing him down later, but I'm going to keep the 3 in there just to show you, because that's what he did. And then he moves down, and he puts in a 4 and a 5 in row 3, column 1. And at this point, Simon finds an X-wing. He's looking here. It's like, oh, 7's are right there. A 7's coming across here. A 7's coming across row 1. Where can a 7 be here in column 3? And then where can a 7 be in column 6? And he notices that it's the same 2 columns in rows 2. Well, excuse me. Yeah, same 2 rows in columns 3 and column 6. So I'm going to mark that right now so you can kind of see the X-wing. Right? So there's the X-wing. 7 is going to be there, or be there and there. You notice the 7 can't be in any other spots in these rows. And so he uses that to his advantage to eliminate a 7 from here and eliminate a 7 from there, right? Because those spots can no longer be a 7 because of the X-wing. And so what he marks next is a 1 and a 9 in row 2, column 4. So that's a 1 and a 9. And this gets pretty interesting right here because he now notices an X, Y wing. So let me, first of all, let's get rid of these colors. And he sees, oh, I have a 1, 9 right here. And I have a 1, 8. And I have an 8, 9 right there. And so he's like, oh, that's an X, Y wing. But since I got the 7s, I want to make sure I mark this spot first. So he's like, I'll come right back to it. I've not really seen Simon do that before, where he sees something, but then he's going to finish something else and come back to it. But it's good. It works out really well. And he says, hey, this can only be a 4, 5, and an 8 in row 6, column 2. Now he uses this logic to solve this X, Y wing. And I've shown many of these before, but basically this is the pivot, right? And these are the 2 pinchers, 1, 8, 9, so 3 different digits, and on the 3 cells, one of them can see both the other ones, right? And they're 3 different combinations. And so if this is a 1, that'd be an 8. If this is a 9, that would be an 8. So any cells that these 2 see, you can eliminate an 8. So you can't have an 8 right here, and you can't have an 8 right there. And Simon notices that, and he's able to solve this for a 2. And he gets a little happy about that because this now starts opening up some more of the puzzle. And so I'm going to get rid of the coloring first, and then I'll move on with the puzzle here. So we'll get rid of that, get rid of that. Okay, so I removed the coloring. After spotting this 2, Simon's able to solve for a 2 in row 4, column 7. You see how now the 2 cuts across. There's no 2 there, so that had to be a 2, and there's no 2 there. And then he's able to solve for a 2 in row 3, column 8. And then he's able to solve the last 2 up here now in row 1, column 6. And so all the 2's are done. Then he comes back, and you remember this was a naked triple, 2, 8, 9. Well, he solved the 2, and that eliminated the 8 right there, so he's able to solve for an 8 in row 4, column 4. Then he marks off the 8s, say an 8, 8, and he marks off the 2 8s right there before coming back and going, oh yeah, 2, 8, I can solve this for a 9. So he solves that 9, finishes off that naked triple he found. Then he starts moving across row 4, and he puts in a 5, 6 here, and then he puts in a 3, 5, 6 in row 4, column 1. This is a frustrating puzzle. So you get to this spot, and there's nothing else there. It's like, what the heck now? He's already put in several advanced strategies, and usually you expect there to be like a natural flow to the next thing, and there's not really a natural flow. A puzzle that this reminds me of was the one I did with Jovial. It's called Double Battered, where you're working down one particular strategy over and over again, and then Jovial switches and she pushes like these X, Y wings near the end. So you had to like totally change your mindset. I'll put a link to that puzzle here. Super fun. Love the puzzle. I recommend you check it out. But just remember, you're throwing the flow off of the solver when you do that. And Jovial explained that in her follow-on reaction video to my solve. And she's like, oh, I got some feedback saying that solvers don't like it when you throw off their mojo and ruin their flow. And the other funny thing that Simon says is that when Derek sent this puzzle with an email, Derek put in the comments, he put in the subject line of the email, I apologize. Because he knew it was going to be tough for Mark and Simon to solve. So after putting in that 3, 5, 6, he puts a 1. He looks up here and puts in a 1, 4, 5 up in row 3, column 7. And then Simon comes back, looks down column 3, sees a 7, 8, and 9. He says, this is an old New York Times hard puzzle trick. And so the trick is, in New York Times, is they'll put 3 digits, like the 7, 8, 9, in one block. And then the 7, 8, 9 can't be in these spots, but they'll limit it to 3 spots in the rest of this column, right? That they're not in. And so that's what Simon notices. And so he's able to mark this as a naked triple, that there's a 7-8 here, an 8-9 here, and a 7-9 here. And so that 7-8-9 are now limited to those 3 spots. And this brings us up to our first what if moment. Okay, this is our first what if moment. What if Simon didn't spot the naked triple coming down column 3 by using that New York Times hard trick? And so I went through all the different candidates, I went through all the different strategies, and really to move forward this puzzle, you do have to see the 7-8-9 naked triple. So if you're looking here, the 7s are limited to those 2 spots, the 8s are limited to those 2 spots, and then the 9s are limited to those 2 spots. And so you have to find the 7-8-9 naked triple to move forward in this puzzle. Something else to notice is this particular video got over 230,000 views, and most of the people said it took them over 2 hours to get this puzzle down. It ended up taking Simon close to 40 minutes, which is really long. A lot of people said they just had to bifurcate. And the other thing they talked about is this is a super hard puzzle. Since this time, this is in 2020, 2021, Simon was doing much harder logic solves than this one. But this one wore him out. Like you could see him visibly getting tired as he went through each different advanced technique. I think there's this kind of a contract, this guarantee that when you're working through a puzzle, if it's supposed to be a certain level of difficulty, it's like, okay, once I find that hard strategy or 2, then you should be able to move on. And it just wasn't the case with this one. And also it was right at the start of lockdown for COVID. And so they were kind of talking about, how we're trying to end this together throughout the COVID time and solving these kind of puzzles. Let's go back to the main solve. Okay, so now Simon starts working his way across row 3. And so first he fills in row 3, column 2 with a 4, 5, 7, 8. Goes to row 3, column 4, fills out a 1, 7. And he notices another XY wing. Now, Simon calls them Y-wing, or sometimes you can call them as a bent triple. But hopefully you can see it here. It's actually using the same pivot, the 1, 9. But now the pinchers are right there. And he perks up a little bit. He's like, oh, good, I saw this right away. So what you'll notice is this is a 1, that's a 7. This is a 9, that's a 7. So you can eliminate a 7 from any spot that sees it. So you can eliminate the 7 right here. And when you do that, where else can a 7 be in block 1? Well, it can only be right there. So he's able to solve that for 7. And let me remove the coloring. But now that's the second XY wing that Simon has found in this puzzle. And so now Simon sees that he can solve for a 7 here in block 2. There's only 1 spot left, and that's there in row 3, column 4. Works his way and says, oh, I solved that for a 7. There's only 1 spot for a 7 here in block 5. Solves that. Row 6, column 6, and then works his way over here and says, oh, there's 1 spot left for a 7 here in block 4. And so he took care of all the 7s. Then he notices, hey, we have this 1, 6, 1, 6 naked pair, so I can eliminate that 1, and now the 1s are limited in block 3 to column 7. Then he finishes out and says, this is a naked pair, so this must be a 3, 4 naked pair. And at this point, believe it or not, Simon finds another advanced strategy. He finds a W wing. All right, so I'm going to show you the W wing. He calls it the crank handle trick. Like, okay, that's cool. All right, so here it is. You have the same bi-value cells, and then you have conjugate pair that connects them. That can see the end. One of them can see the beginning, and one can see the end. And so this conjugate pair is right here. And what you know is that this 5 has a strong link with the 4, weak link to this 4, strong link to this 4, weak link to this 4, strong link to this 5. And what you're basically saying is either this is a 5, if that's not a 5, this has to be a 5 right here. And so any cell that sees both of these, you can eliminate a 5. And so Simon's able to eliminate a 5 right there. And he creates a 1, 3, 4 triple. Now, if you're not too familiar with W wings, I will put a link to another one of my tutorials, my W wing tutorial right now, and you can check that out. I highly recommend it. These are usually really hard to spot, and Simon found this one pretty quickly, which is awesome. But now I'm going to eliminate some of these colors, and we'll move on with the rest of the solve, because this was a huge find by Simon. Okay, by eliminating this 5, you have a 1, 3, 4 naked triple coming down column 7. So there's only one spot remaining for a 5. So Simon's able to solve that for a 5 there in row 7, column 7. And then he can work his way across and down with the 5s. And there's only one spot left for a 5 here in block 8. And then he marks 5s across these 2 spots in block 7. At this point, he finishes off row 9 with a 3, 4, and a 6, and then looks up and sees this 4 and sees how this plays and goes, I see another empty rectangle. All right, and so I'm going to show it to you in case you don't see it. Here's the shape. It's right here. And then the connection is right here. And so what you have is conjugate pair, 3 and a 4, and you got the empty ring. So the 4 can be in only one of these 3 spots. So either 4 is in one of these spots here. This can't be a 4, and that's a 4. And there can't be a 4 right here. Or if a 4 is not one of those spots, it has to be right here, and there still can't be a 4 right there. So either way, because of the slice and dice, you can't have a 4 right here. And so Simon's able to realize that can't be a 4, and once you eliminate a 4, this has to be a 1. So let's remove the colors again, and we will continue on with solve. After this 1 in row 3, column 7, he's able to find that there's only one 1 remaining here in block 6. So you can solve that for a 1 in row 6, column 9. And then you mark the 4, 5 in row 6, column 8. He looks up across row 3 and notices that he can solve this for an 8 because there's a 4, 5 already in block 2. So he solves that for an 8. And he marks some 8s in row 1, or excuse me, block 1 across row 1. Then he marks some 4s in block 3, saying, hey, there's a 4 in row 1, so there's got to be 2 4s right there. And then he makes and notices this 4, 5 naked pair right here in block 1. So this brings us up to our last pause the video moment, because this is what Simon doesn't quite see yet. Pause the video and solve for a cell right now in block 1 while I give you a few seconds. Congratulations if you spotted it. If Simon hadn't marked this 3 incorrectly, he probably would have seen it a little sooner. But since you have this 4, 5 naked pair right here, this cannot be a 4 anymore, and it can't be a 3, so you can solve this cell for a 6. After solving that for a 6, Simon did see it eventually, and he's like, oh, I wonder how long that's been there. So he did solve that for a 6, and then he moved on and solved for a 6 in row 4, column 3, because there's 2, that 6 eliminated, and it left a 6 right there. After solving that 6 in row 4, column 3, he marked 6s in block 7. And there's kind of neat. If you have the 3s here and then you mark the 6s, well, now those are basically a hidden pair because you can see that 5 there, but the 5 can no longer be there because these 3 and 6 are restricted to these 2 spots in this block. So he's able to solve for a 5. He's like, oh, it can't be a 5 more. That has to be a 5. And then he's able to solve for a 1 above it and the 4 below it in row 9, column 3. Then he starts working his way across row 9 and but first he does mark this 4 right here in row 8, column 6. Then he goes down in row 9, column 6, gets that 3, and then goes to row 9, column 9, and solves that for a 6. After he solves this for 6, he looks all the way up to the top and says, oh, row 1, column 9, now that has to be a 5. After solving that for a 5, he looks down and says, oh, only one can't remaining here in row 4, column 9, so that has to be a 3, and he's able to then solve for the 4 in row 5, column 7, and then he's able to solve for the 5 in row 6, column 8. And he's still a little hesitant here. He's starting to get happy, but he says, dare say anything, but we might be almost finished. At this point, Simon's used 9 advanced solving strategies to get this far. That's very uncommon to have a puzzle like this that wasn't budged for long. Many setters will just put in one hard trick, and once you get that hard trick, they reward you with an easy, approachable solve pathway. This one by Derek Neal, not the case. He kept budging, and he kept trying to move it forward and wouldn't. But I think Simon might have gotten through the hard part here. So now he's looking to solve for an 8 in row 6, column 3, and which means there's only one spot left here, which is the 4 in row 6, column 2. And that allows him to solve for a 3 in row 5, column 1, and then a 5 in row 4, column 1, and a 4 in row 3, column 1. And at this point, I recommend you try to guess where Simon solved next. So you just look and say, where would you solve next? And see, as I repeat what Simon did, how close you got. All right, so after that 4, he solved a 5 in row 3, column 2, then a 4 in row 7, column 8, then a 3 in row 8, column 8, then a 3 in row 7, column 2, a 6 in row 8, column 2, a 1 in row 8, column 5, and the reason being is he saw that this was a 6-9 pair, even though he hadn't marked it. Then a 1 in row 5, column 4, a 6 in row 5, column 5, a 6 in row 7, column 4, a 9 in row 7, column 5, and after that 9, it's a 9 in row 2, column 4, a 3 in row 1, column 5, a 1, I'm sorry, got me there, Simon, a 1 in row 2, column 6, a 6 in row 1, column 8, a 3 in row 2, column 7, then the 4 in row 2, column 9, then the 8 in row 1, column 2, and then the 9 in row 1, column 3. If you want to see more solving like this, check out these other videos from my channel. If you want to further support Smart Hobbies by buying me a coffee, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching.